Welcome to Gaming on the Brain. My name's Mark.
I'm Glenn.
And in today's episode, we're going to be looking at 5 action strategy games for the Sega Megadrive.
Action strategy on the Sega Megadrive is quite a rare genre. There's not very many games like that on the system, which is a shame because it's a bit of a mishmash of several different genres that exist anyway.
Action
but it's
and
not
strategy.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's not always exactly what you'd like it to be. You know, could it be a board game with some arcade style elements, or could it be more of an arcade action game with some mysterious and strangely never seen before elements as well? So we'll keep you entertained with this, I'm quite sure.
Yeah, as Glenn says, it wasn't very well represented. In fact, more suited really to like your IBM PC or your Amiga. But we're going to delve into the catalogue, not many of them, and we're going to pull out 5 of what we think is the best or representative of a good variety of action strategy games on the Sega Mega Drive. So with that, we hope you enjoy the episode, and as always, your feedback is very, very welcome. General Chaos is an action strategy game which is based around the conflict of 2 warring generals, Chaos and Havoc.
And, the thing about General Chaos is it came out in 93 anyway, and it's got a bit of a jank about it. It's a pleasant, warm jank, if you want to call it that, though, as in the controls are a bit of a mess. And I always thought that back in the day as well, but in a multiplayer game, though, it really does add to the fun when you guys aiming in the wrong direction, which you want to be, or you end up damaging something like you didn't make now. So it does add to the charm, I think.
Some of the AI is absolutely insane in this game, but as for the controls, Glenn, I found that it was really difficult controlling the squads of 5, and I absolutely preferred using the commandos because I felt you could have a bit more action and a bit more fun.
I also I had a bit of a thing for the humour of this game as well. I think the thing, like I've already said, but I have to repeat, can't help myself, came in 1993 at a time when we weren't so touchy about this type of stuff. So having a bit of fun and taking the mickey out of the theme of war, I think really did work for General Chaos. You know, it doesn't take itself too seriously, which I think is a nice thing. You know, and I think I've got a lot of time for the humour and the fun within this game.
In 2013, the Kickstarter was raised to try and make a sequel to this game, Glenn, but unfortunately it didn't get past its goal and fell short about $100,000.
Quite a shame.
It is a shame because I would have liked to have seen a sequel to this game. Star Control, released in 1991 on the Sega Mega Drive, was actually developed by Toys for Bob, Glenn, who we might recognise from the recent Spyro and Crash trilogy.
Been involved in a lot of games, yeah. Obviously, moving away from the developers themselves, this actual game, this game Star Control, is it's split into 2 main parts, really. I mean, I think the developers intended you to play the whole game, which is a strategy segment and a more action-oriented segment, but it's so well known for its versus mode, which is referred to as melee. Now, we've had some great times on melee. One-on-one fights between ships, but Anybody who is old enough, as in very old, to know this game's original basis might say it's based on something called Space War, which is actually it's a very old game, a computer game for something called a PDP mainframe system. One-on-one versus fights with ships, and that's all it is. And let's say Star Control takes its most fun segments from this game. Part of the fun in Star Control's melee mode for me, and I think you, hopefully, and many others out there, because it has a couple of sequels, is not just picking a ship and fighting another ship. It's finding out what the counter picks are now. Initially, when you look at the selection of 16 ships, there's 2 factions, 8 on each side. You'll just look at like the strengths and the weaknesses, and you might pick one ship and find out it's completely useless against another. But the fun in the melee, because as you lose a ship, you come in with your next ship to counter that player's existing ship. So you have to try and like get a balance of which ship is best to fight the opposing player's ship of the moment, and they all have like price points as well. So when you're playing in the main single player game, a stronger ship will cost a lot more to purchase than a cheaper ship. So the game is quite a lot more balanced than it would initially appear.
Speaking of the full game mode, Glenn, it's actually plays more similar to a board game, as I see. One thing, there's 15 campaigns. Ranging in length and variety of the available ships and things like that. So I think if you were to play through a single player, there's quite a bit of action strategy to be had there, But have you noticed as well, though, how easy to pick up and play the single player aspect is, which again it is very light for what it is compared to other action strategy games of the time, for say the PC. But we just got straight in and we picked up what you need to do without reading the manual or looking at the game, FAQ or anything like that. So it's quite fun, but the multiplayer mode is, like I said, where it's at. Don't let the visuals put you off on this one, because I think there can be some fun to have.
Rampart is quite an interesting development. I've always thought it's quite unique, not just for its time, but for the modern era now. As in, it's definitely the progenitor for what we know now as tower defense games. But back in the day, there was nothing quite like this. One little interesting tidbit about the development, and this is my opinion, I don't know if it's definitely based on this old game, but it does appear to have its roots based in a very early arcade game. I think it came with the Atari 2600 and possibly a couple of other older formats as well. But a game called Warlords, so maybe that would be one to check out as well at some point for us.
Now, this game originally released in the arcades back in 1990, and it was one of the earlier games with trackball controls, which when you look at the gameplay, it really makes sense as it gives you that more finite movement of the cursor. The other interesting thing about the arcade one, Glenn, as well, was that it was originally 3-player, where the Genesis and Megadrive versions, unfortunately, are only 2-player, and as well as most of the other console and computer ports as well.
And that does make a very big difference. I mean, like I say, we're focusing on the Mega Drive version today, but Rampart with 3-player looks absolutely mental, I have to say, honestly. Having that style of gameplay, I mean, like I say, there's 2 different styles of gameplay as well, with the multiplayer being very different. Obviously, you're shelling each other's castles as opposed to taking on the enemy ships that you do in single player.
Yeah, that's right. In single player mode, there's 6 waves in total. And different variations of ships come at you. Some will be launching cannonballs, some will drop off the enemies on the shore and they'll try and besiege the castle. There's quite a bit of variety in that sense, but definitely the majority of the fun is to be had in the multiplayer mode.
Definitely, which is unusual as well, though, for an arcade game, I would have said at the time, being that it feels like it's more multiplayer based than single player. But as I said, I mean, it is what it is at the time. I also have to add as well, I mean, about Rampart, it's got some dark humour. I mean, it doesn't go too far, you know, and it's not anything like what you'd see in more modern days, but it's mainly just down to the continue screens, really, or the ending screens where one player gets beaten at and
You get
you see
lop
the
the other person's head off.
You don't see, it's nothing graphic, you know, I mean, it's an Atari-made game. But it is nice to see that in an arcade setting back in that day, you know, like I say, it's quite tasteful. It's hardly Moonstone on the Amiga, if anyone knows that classic that we might touch on one day. But it is nice. It's a nice game. It's a good game.
One thing I've been very shocked about with Rampart is we haven't seen a revival for touchscreen devices, because this game would absolutely suit being played on a touchscreen.
Yeah.
You know, it goes back to like Bloons TD and Orcs Must Die. It's that tower defense style is just perfect for like mobile phones and tablets.
I think we'll see one.
I do hope that at some point Atari will get the finger out the backsides and release an up-to-date remake of this, because I think it could be good.
I'd like to see that, definitely. But as far as game ground goes, I mean, there's absolutely nothing, I mean, really nothing I've ever seen quite like it. That might sound like a bit of a push, but it really is quite unique. On initial visual impressions, you see a game that looks quite a bit like Commando or Akari Warriors, a vertical top-down shooter. And because of the fixed screens, you would be initially maybe a little bit unimpressed as well, because you would expect some scrolling, and there's none of that. But what you really have here is a game that is more of a strategic puzzle shooter. I will use those three terms to describe it. Strategic elements, even a little bit RPG actually. Strategic elements because of the you need different characters and their different weapons and abilities to clear certain obstacles or groups of enemies and such. RPG elements because the 20 available characters in the game do have very different stats as in speed and skill with their weapons, and some are clearly better in some situations than others. Some are like throwaway characters, the equivalent of Dan from Street Fighter, if you want to call it, like a joke character. And puzzle elements because it is because of the placements and the setups of the enemies and the obstacles in the game. You really do have to think ahead, almost like playing chess, which is crazy. Is it a board game as well? It's not, but there's like, you could consider a couple of elements there, because you do need to really think how to clear a level. And as well as we found before, there's multiple ways to clear a level, and although I would say there's only really one true way to complete a level, like really you want to be destroying all the enemies, but you don't want to destroy them too soon, because you want to be able to rescue as many of the hostages, which some of these are like really powerful characters, you know. Get the hostages out first, then concentrate on clearing a level.
Yeah, because if you clear the level, like Glenn says, by killing all the enemies first, then chances are you're not going to be able to rescue the people.
Yeah.
And you only start this game with 3 people or 3 characters.
So fixed ones and all that.
Yeah, every time you rescue a character, you add that character to your team, essentially. So you're giving yourself more lives, which the idea is to build up the amount of lives you have to the further you get in the game, so you have more chance of beating the game. The other thing I really like about this as well, Glenn, the characters themselves, there's a lot of variety, isn't there? In up to 20 characters.
Well, we've seen ourselves, I mean, we've played, I mean, and these are most versions, so arcade and Megadrive, I'll not discuss the versions at the minute, so just to overcomplicate things. But there's a character in there who has like a 5-way shot, and the missiles that home in, and the home in on the whole of the screen, and I mean, obviously, generally you would not get this character quite late in the game, I think, but there is a hard mode on the Mega Drive, which coupled with the level select, yeah, we're like a bit cheating, coupled with the level select, you can choose to play any level and play like use this character, and and absolutely devastate it. But it's fun. Speaking of the hard level quickly though, to play it properly, you should begin the game from the beginning. but you only have the 20 characters, so the man management there, and again the RPG elements is absolutely fantastic, because if you lose any one of those characters, and especially one of the tougher characters like the pre-mentioned one early in the game, you're pretty much stuffed like. But the variety of levels as well, I mean 50 stages in the Mega Drive, 10 more than the arcade, but get into that in a second. There is a very good reason for that. And all so many different elements, so many different stylings to the levels, and this is each world has a 10 level block, so you can have 10 absolutely 10 completely contrasting levels within a world, like an era as they're called. Also as well, one quick note of the Mega Drive, and it's 50 levels. The original arcade game of Game Ground actually only has 40 levels, and you have a prehistoric era, which is like cavemen, and no dinosaurs running up with cavemen, people throwing spears at you and stuff. You've got a medieval era, which, as you would expect, is more knights, crossbowmen, archers, the like, you know. And then you've got I'm going to call it the China era, really, because it's during like the Boxer Revolution, possibly, I don't know, but it's sort of like medieval China, really. So it's still like pretty ancient. There's you know, it's set in old times. But then once you complete that world, you jump straight to a future world, and it's like there's something jarring. As much as it's a great game in the arcade, there's something absolutely not right there. So we did a little bit digging, didn't we?
Yeah.
And we found out that one of the main designers of the game, of the Mega Drive, and I think also the arcade as well, deliberately implemented a new modern era, which comes between the China era and the future era, which is based on like 90s army tech, what you'd expect, tanks, soldiers, you know, in city streets. It's a really cool level. When I played that level before the arcade version, it felt so right. Didn't feel tacked on. It felt like it's meant to be there, and sure enough, the article that we've read, the guy says that the Mega Drive version he sees as the true, complete version, not the arcade game. Time constraints and all, that's what you get though. Great game overall, in my opinion.
I really enjoyed this one. I've never played it before, but I must say that I had a lot of fun, especially in 2-player, Glenn.
Definitely. And it is a 3-player arcade game as well, originally. So it's one I think we want to put a little bit more time into in the future, isn't it?
I'd have a game in 3-player, definitely.
Yeah, keep an eye on that one.
So, if you ever grew up with an Amiga or a PC, you've probably heard of Cannon Fodder. It's basically a strategic action game in the sense that you're running around with a squad of army guys, and you're shooting the enemies, you're blowing up buildings, you're trying to commandeer choppers, things like that. You use a single button for shooting and a single button for moving, and the game itself is very suitable for a mouse, which is why it was originally on the likes of the Amiga and the PC. Today, obviously, we're talking about the Mega Drive version, and believe it or not, but the controls actually hold up really well.
Definitely.
It plays really, really well. It's just as good as the Amiga version, if I remember correctly. The only sad thing, Glenn, it's missing that amazing music at the start.
Well, I wanted to mention the music. It's a good rendition, though. It's just the lyrics. There's no lyrics. The Amiga version, I'm not about to sing it for you, because you can't find it, is such an iconic tune of the 90s on 16-bit computing, really. It was just, so catchy and so famous. So even if you didn't know the game, which you probably will if you're sitting there watching this stuff, if you didn't know the game, you'll probably almost certainly know the music. My issue with Cannon Fodder is that as much as it's a great game and a very polished game, and it does seem faithful to its source material, it's hard as all hell. I struggle like hell. I mean, I lost a level early on because I blew myself up with a grenade by accidentally trying to destroy a hut and destroying everything but up, pretty much. In fact, didn't half of the hut land on my head at one point?
The hut landed on some of your squad at one point, yeah. But it does get tough pretty quickly, Glenn. I mean, even the first couple of levels are manageable, and then suddenly the curve just goes steep, in my opinion.
Well, we'll mess about. We'll try and see like some different what the different levels are. When I looked at the original Mega version, all I ever really seen was pretty much a game that looked set in forest. So I didn't realise that we've got all these other worlds set around like the Arctic and the desert and that, and it looked like it was an urban sort of factory type level there, which towards the end of the whole campaign, I think, which looks like a very long campaign.
29 levels, I believe.
It's a lot. I mean, the first one only had about 3 blokes to kill, didn't it? And you just literally shot them and that was it. And then by the time we're at the end, it looked like you had about 12 different tasks to complete and multiple doors to blow down. Remember, every single time you blow one of them doors down, stand clear, or you'll blow yourself up.
Yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
It's a game where you've got to be careful, and later missions, apparently, you do get the control involved in one squad as well, so that will be interesting.
I think, like General Chaos earlier as well, this one, it's got a lot of humour based around war, which, you know, it's something that you probably wouldn't get away with so much these days. But it sets the tone straight away with the music at the beginning, you know.
Somebody would be offended. I mean, and it's great that the Megadrive's caught that. That'd be interesting. I wonder if the SNES has some of that, because there's a little bit of blood there. No, so it'd be interesting to look at the SNES version at some point. But the Twitches make me laugh. You know, you've got the guys who haven't actually, they've just been named, but the poor guys haven't been finished off, and they'll just sit there squealing away and not wait for it to finish them off. Like, I think it happens to your own team sometimes, and also you're tasked with like putting your men out of the misery and that. I mean, it's really dark humour for a game from like roughly 1992, you know, darker than some of the other games we've played in this segment.
Well, this port, funny enough, came out in 1995, so it was quite a late port to the Mega Drive.
Yeah, that is a late port. I mean, a lot of polishing, I suppose, like at that point, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Great game, though. It holds up really well today. I recommend you go and play it. It's fantastic.
Even for a laugh, if you want to play it for a laugh. I mean, I had some belly laughs playing that, so yeah, I think we did, you know, when you fell for the cliff.
Yeah. Good game. So we've reached the end of today's video, and I think for me, Glenn, I probably had the most fun revisiting Cannon Fodder, because I haven't played that game since I actually owned an Amiga, and coming back to it, playing the Mega Drive version, which I actually thought wouldn't, you know, hold a candle at all to the Amiga version. It actually did. It was a very good port. However, I will say the standout game for me today, I think, was Gain Ground, because I've never played that before, and I actually really enjoyed the 2-player Mega Drive version.
Well,
what about you?
I mean, Cannon Fodder for me, like I thought it was a hard game, and I'm afraid, I mean, I think you did better than me. Well, you did. I mean, at one point you were like, looked like we were playing Desert Strike, but with less control. Yeah. Even though the mouse control obviously
would have been better.
Yeah, you don't enjoy it bad. But like watching each other like fall off cliffs and just blow ourselves up, that was like belly achingly funny for me personally. But I laugh at anything. So, but I will agree with what you just said about Gain Ground. I mean, I think I love it.
Brilliant.
I love the game. I've always been interested in the game anyway, because I love the look of the arcade cabinet and the fact that there's different versions of the game, and they play it quite differently with different elements. So maybe we'll touch on the versions in the future. Who knows? But playing the Mega Drive game. And seeing the extra material, which is one of the reasons why I've also loved Mega Drive Golden Axe, because it just blew me away back in the day, and still does. Like I say, I'm easy to play as well. It was just such a fun concept that I think you could either love or hate. Because I mean, initially going in to play Gain Ground, any version arcade Mega Drive,
it doesn't look like it doesn't play like you would expect it to play when you see it.
It's not a beautiful game. I mean, like say compared to say Crackdown, which is a slightly later game on the same arcade system, I think it's still stunningly beautiful. Lots of colours and richness, and that. Really everything just pops and that. You know, where Gain Ground doesn't so much. There is a year's difference, fair enough. But you know, I could understand how maybe it was a bit of a sleeper hit, if even a hit at all, more of a cult favourite. But after playing it a bit and understanding its systems and getting into, I think you'd have to get into the zone with that game. Do you not think so? Because the thing is, I was teaching you, I was telling you, you know, you need to rescue the people and get out, and then
keep killing everybody,
and now keep doing it themselves, keep like shooting everybody before we'd clear the level, and we're losing valuable characters, you know, which you need to really balance that with. I mean, certain levels you might just need to get out because there's too much going on. You can't hit a certain bad guy or something, you know. So you've got to weigh up those pros and cons. So it was a great game. we enjoyed Rampart and all, didn't we?
Rampart was great fun in 2-player. It's definitely one I'd recommend as well.
It's such a unique game as well, isn't it? I mean, especially for its time where there was nothing like that out there. I mean, I compared it to a game called Warlords, which is a much earlier game that doesn't play the same at all, but the theme is similar. And because I can't find a comparison between Rampart and anything between Warlords and Rampart, you just go Warlords from 1980 or whatever, 4-player game as well. To Rampart, you know, which again is just like, well, it's medieval times and there's castles, so what do we do? You know, what do we do? But it was good, and the single player looks interesting, but it's definitely a multiplayer game. I would definitely call that a multiplayer. Obviously, as time's gone on, there's much more multiplayer based games now anyway, but for an arcade game, that's quite an unusual and brave concept, I think, because obviously you can't guarantee having at least another person to play with, can you?
Yeah.
So most arcade experiences, like Street Fighter 2, fair enough, but most arcade experiences, you go in and put your cash down and play the game, and if somebody else joins in, it's a bonus. Not so in a game from that world, and also for the style of game it is. We had another couple of classics on there as well, didn't we?
There was, yeah. I mean, we'll not go too much into it. Obviously, if you watched the video, you've heard us talk all about it. But General Chaos, Star Control, both good games as well.
Well, we played with Star Control before, didn't we? And I think you didn't like it too much, but it is a game.
There's fun to be had.
There is fun to be had, and it is from the melee mode, which is like, it's classed as like half of the game, really. I mean, the main game is the full campaign, but the melee, as I said in the video, it does come across initially as unbalanced, because obviously there's 2 sets of ships and they have very, very different powers and weapons and whatnot. You could be playing as one little ship, and I could have a massive, basically a dreadnought, which is equipped like a Star Destroyer versus an X-wing. I mean, who's going to win that? But there is a method to the madness. I mean, in the main game, every ship has a price point.
Yeah.
So you're paying, so big ships much more expensive than little ships. You actually have even in just the melee mode, which is a standalone game as well. You do have a fleet of ships, and it's looking at the balance. And when you've got an understanding of the game and the 2 different sides and their ships, you know which ones to put against each other. So, but it would take some getting used to it. It's a game I've always liked. It's one I grew up with, though.
But I think we'll call it a day there, Glenn. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the video. Look out for the next one. It'll be coming down the line soon. And as always, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.